And welcome back to another Fantasy Take TV podcast. We've got so much to go over today. Team strategies. What are the things we're aiming to fix and achieve as we lead into the buys? The best options on each line. Rookies, Twitter Q&A, captain options, and so much more. And you're, of course, hosted today by the happiest man in fantasy. It is JD. And joining me is my co-pilots, the men that can fly if they believe they can fly. It's George and Eno. George, firstly, how are you going for the week? Let us know something positive that's happened to you in the last 7 days.
Something positive that's happened. You put me on the spot. I can't think of anything at the moment. I'll get back to that in a second. But my team scored. I'm just trying to think about Supercoach team. It was not Gorn, not having Gorn. Honestly, I don't know. But my team scored 2,459, ranked 26K. Okay score. Didn't have any of the big scores this week. It's a little unfortunate. And my trades were Grundy to Clary, Cherry to Hayes, and Rochelle to Roses. So probably something that happened to me. Well, I think I went to Chinatown, as I said in my video, and had a very nice meal. I ordered a curry Thai, like green curry. Mm-hmm. I could barely eat it because it didn't specify that it had chili in it. Right. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but I did my best. I was sweating at the table. And I'm pretty sure I saw the girl from that Amy ad that dreams about Parker there. So I think that was pretty cool.
That is a sign for the week ahead. Yeah. If that's not a sign to say what your trade should be this week, I don't know what is.
I knew because that was Saturday, and I think Parker played Sunday, so I should have known.
And Eno, how about yourself? How did you score? And let us know something positive that happened to you in the last 7 days.
Well, I guess the positive off the top is a green arrow. Like, that's got to be positive. I think we've had 4 red arrows in consecutive weeks for my team anyway. And yeah, I am talking in, that is FPL terminology. So I guess I'll mention a positive. I was number 1 in Australia in FPL for 24 hours. Doesn't matter anymore. I think I'm back out to about 9th. So the ship sailed. I think I butchered the last week. So that doesn't matter, but for 24 hours, that was a positive.
And for those that don't play FPL, how many people did you compete against? Like 9 or 10 mil or something like that?
Like, it's 9 mil to start the year, but like any fantasy game, I'm sure that's halved by now, as people don't drop off. Same happens in Supercoach probably, but yeah, it's like 9 mil, but I think it's like I'm 200th in the world now. So anyway, that's a positive, but that's not Supercoach, and that's not why people are here, but the green arrow in Supercoach. So went up to 28K from 30K. So, making big moves, us boys, aren't we? 2,441. So like you, JD, I think we had Captain McRae, which hurt a little bit when every other mid and seemingly every other player in the whole team went 140 plus this week. So what was it weekly? Like 2,800. This is just stupid in round 7. So massive scoring week. But anyway, yeah, we're going to keep upgrading and trying to get our team better and keep rising those ranks.
Well, I'm very impressed with the going early on Clark Eno. Another week of trading in more tons. Clary and Clark both tunning up straight onto your field. Love that. Great effort. Myself, I scored 23.94, so easily the worst of us. McRae captain, as you mentioned, as well as then DeGoey on fields with Gastro being the ultimate tagger. That's hurt. He's dropped a couple of poor scores since joining the squad and ranked around 27K now. My trades, I think, were quite similar flavor to yours, which is Rochelle, Horn Francis, and Hayes out, and then Oliver, Hayes, and Roses in. So first topic for today that we're going to transition into is what are we doing with our teams here? We're at an interesting spot in the year. I mean, a lot of people kind of say that we all start with the same team and kind of finish at the same team. But what differentiates the good and the bad sides and the good and the bad coaches is what you do in the middle to get there. That's where you can make up ground or lose positions. So I think we're at a pretty critical spot. A lot of teams have chewed through 2 or 3 boosts at least, if not more. And we're kind of heading towards that bye period. What are you doing with your teams? What are you aiming to do either this week or the next few weeks to kind of get yourself not only prepared for that, but maybe to get an advantage over others? And George, how about we start with you?
Yeah, so the next few weeks will be pretty important. I think we have to think about the buys the next few weeks when we bring in players. So I look at my defense. I'm crying out for a player in the middle buy in defense. And unfortunately, the one I'd like is Tom Stewart. He is gone for me. So I think if you can pay for 600 for Stewart. That's fine. So I need to patch up. I got O'Driscoll and Dacos. I need to get them off the field pretty soon. Dacos, I'm still okay to field. O'Driscoll has a soft matchup this week, but he needs to get off the field. I have the praise Ruck line. I don't want to keep praising every week. I want to get out of this just purely because of Gorn and the West Coast matchup coming up. And Gorn's still going up in price. So probably grab Gorn this week. I'd love to get Luke Parker. I don't think I can do it with how my team's set up. I think it's just worth getting off bad rookies off the field in defense first. So, trying to find the balance. And I think I'd like to get Jack Steele for Nick Martin in before the buys, which sounds weird, but it just kind of, they both have the same buy anyway. And I should field 8 in the midfield regardless. So that's where my team's at. Trying to figure out which defender I want and having a hard time figuring that out. But how about you? Where are you at the moment?
Looking at my buys, it's surprisingly set up pretty well, not by any planning of my own doing, but having Stewart and Dawson, they've both got that middle buy that you're talking about. So I've already sort of got it split where 2 in the first, 2 in the second, and then it's Sicily and Dacos in the last. So that's perfect. Dacos will go hopefully at that buy, and what defender I'll get in is yet to be determined. Sinclair, Doherty, whoever's looking all right around that time. It won't be Crisp because he's got the same buy, obviously, with Dacos, so probably doesn't make too much sense. In the midfield, that's actually looking not too bad as well. So I don't have a Petraka like you guys, which doubles up on the Melbourne guys. I've got to get Cripps this week, which we'll talk about later. But then it's just whether or not I downgrade Horn Francis this week and use a boost doing so, or just hold on. Ruck line's fine. I've got Darcy instead of Gorn. Not that he's played or scored anywhere as many points as he has, but he's my one primo ruck, so I'm able to bench Hayes this week if that goes well. And then with Parker, we'll speak about it with Cripps later with my team specifically, and a question I think some people have from Twitter, but have to again skip Parker for another week or maybe more, like you, George. So he looked like a great pickup last week for 470k. So if you got that, that was a great move. But yeah, as you said, look for the buys. Make sure you plan for them, and then I'm not going to be afraid to use the boosts and run out of them by the time the buys hit. Like I don't think we're going to be desperate for them to use like 4 trades across the buys. Just upgrade. I got still a trash F6 in my situation, which is probably what's putting me further behind or not allowing me to catch up to the good teams because I'm still having to field a Durden, a Dixon, or someone every week. So they've got to fix that up. But yeah, that's how the team's sort of looking for the next sort of month or so. What about you, JD?
Yeah, so buys planning hasn't come into consideration as much for me yet. I know there's a few last upgrades on each line that I want. So I need Steele in the midfield, who has the first buy. Tim Taranto in the forward line is an interesting one. Maybe even Doherty in defense. So there's a few like upgrade targets in that first buy round that I'll wait to upgrade last to. So without focusing on that too much, my main priority has been to get bad rookies off the field, like you two have kind of talked a little bit already, and get into a spot where I'm not fielding Durden, Dixon, Roses, who I fielded 2 of last week. And I think this is the week I'll finally be able to achieve it. So my last 3 rookies on field should be Dacos, Martin, and Clark, which is a really good spot. And then I can kind of pick between trading those or moving those on or moving on like the last of my mid prices like a Berry. And then once that's all done, I can kind of fix up underperforming primos. That may be like a Whitfield or potentially a Canelio. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. And I'm just burning through my boosts as quick as I can to make that happen. I don't have any real interest in holding one for the buys. For like the reasons you've talked about, like we've got enough trades during them anyway. Your team's going to be mostly complete, so it's unlikely you're going to need to boost at that point in the season. So, yeah, racing for the finish of an upgraded team, and then I think I'm going to have extra trades to fix up, any issues that I have, but mainly hunting value to do this as well. So, I'm very conscious of the fact that if I'm trading in Stewarts and Gorns and whoever it is that is scoring very well, but a price at the top, it's going to slow down my upgrade cadence. So I'm going to have to miss on some of these top guys now and hope I can pick them up later once my team's finished. All right. So might be worthwhile then going through some of the best options in each of the lines, because I know that's on a lot of people's minds as they look to upgrade, as well as then figure out, upgrade targets either for the buys or to finish out the teams to be ready for buys. Let's jump into defense. There's a few players on the menu, and one that's been talked about more so than most is Tom Stewart, who went was it 87 or 89?
87.
87, just quietly 187. And he has pumped himself way into the 600 range. So a lot of people are saying, should I bring in Stewart this week? And it does feel like it's a now or never week for Stewart, just because the break-even's low. That 187 is going to be the rolling average for a couple of weeks. And so he's going to well and truly, get into the mid 600s. Me personally, before I hand over to you, so I think we've got a bit of a split, right? George and I don't have him. I know you do have him. So some different perspectives here. Even if I had everything else perfectly fine, I just can't justify paying over 600K for a defender. That is, uber midfield money is what you're looking at spending on a defender, which generally hasn't worked out. I think Stewart's probably played the best Supercoach game that he'll ever have in his career. I don't think he'll ever hit the heights of that again. So going after him for over 600K feels like chasing points, when what we saw through the first half of the year the first part of the year plus 5 points is probably where I would have his average pegged. So in that, 110 to 115 range is probably more realistic for him here on out. So for me, I would love to have him, and the buy works great, as George mentioned, but for, into the 600s, it's a pass. George, anything you want to build on with that? And do you want to talk about, I don't know if you watched the game, but do you want to talk about the role that he had during it?
It's a piss take role for fantasy scoring. He gets down back and then he pushes up the ground, starts on the wing sometimes. So they use him to deliver the ball inside 50, and he's back intercepting and getting junk. And probably right, the Freo mid scored so bad just because, if they had 60 kicks between three of the midfielders, 40 of them went in Tom Stewart's hands. So, I think the role, when he went on a roll, when he changed, I think it was round 6, he started this wing, starting on the wing a bit more. And I wasn't sure if it would be good or not for fantasy scoring, but he just scored a 187 in it. But I still feel like he was more defense in round 7. So I think he basically has a bit more opportunity to get the ball up the ground more. So I think you can bump his scoring up from maybe instead of sub 110, it's, I don't know, 110 to 115, that sort of range. So look, if he's 600K and you can afford him and it doesn't punish your future upgrades, I don't see why not just get him now. He was only, 30, 40K more of what you'd expect to pay for him. So I can't get him. I can't afford him. I'll have to go for a Dawson probably, who's 100K cheaper. And I think Dawson's my D15 at the moment, which isn't great on my ranks. And I think Stewart is top 3. So yeah, bit of a tough spot. So if you can afford him and you're in position to, I would definitely grab Top Stewart this week. What do you think, Eno? Would you grab him if you didn't have him this week? Or too expensive?
It's too he's 607K for a defender. Unless you think he's going to genuinely be maybe 115, 120 average from here, then I can see a reason to do it. But I just don't think it's just not value enough to do it. And with the cash gen looking like it is, which isn't great, then I just think you got to get cheaper options and value picks elsewhere. Obviously he's a defender of choice, but if you had between him or Parker this week, I just think you bring in Parker 10 times out of 10. It probably gets a worse rookie off field. It probably helps you in the long run. I just don't see why Stewart would be an option at 600K. Yeah.
Some people need to get defenders in more than others. So
yeah. Look, if you can afford it, then I would maybe entertain it. I just don't like it at 607K. It's, I don't know. There's midfielders that are going to average more than him for less. I get the position. Yeah, if you need a defender, but I just wouldn't be looking at him, JD. I know you agree, but I just can't see it. And that's not me trying to gatekeep the pick. I'm happy watching him every week, or you don't even have to watch him. You just know he's going to score half decent. But I don't like the value.
I mean, for me as well, you just look at some of the midfielders at the moment. So you've got Took at 590, Petrarca at 560, Cripps at 526. What's Brayshaw down to? Yeah, what's Brayshaw?
580.
Do you have Stewart averaging more than any of those picks?
No.
at best case the same, like 115.
But
and maybe
you're going to
one of the
have,
mids
you can
is
field Greg
115.
Clark at M8, and he's going to put, what can he average? I don't know, like maybe in the
Yeah.
80s somewhere.
And then
That's
what is it?
more than-
Driscoll in defense instead,
And
someone like that.
McCartan and Hinge, they're probably like, 65, 70.
Yeah.
So
Is it just for
so
one
Greg
week
Clark
though?
could probably do
or-
more. I don't know. Kind of depends where you're at, because a
Yeah.
lot of us are trying to work around the buys as well. Like they might want to keep fielding Dacos and Driscoll to the buys. So yeah, bit of a tough one, but I think 600k is fine if you want to pay it. If you can, if you can't, go for Parker if that fits your structure better.
Yeah, I would just look ahead. If you're in that situation, I'd just look ahead and see who you can upgrade to next week. Because if paying 600 for Stewart next week means that you have to get, say, like DeGoey at 460 rather than a good midfielder or something.
Mate,
then
no one wants to go.
I know
He's
that's what I'm
fraud.
saying, but that's what I'm saying. I'm
Exactly,
saying like
yeah.
if getting Stewart this week forces you into like DeGoey is the best premium you
caps
can
you.
get to next
Yeah.
week,
Or like
right?
Rosie.
Right? Like, yeah, exactly. You're gonna have better options this week by going like Parker and then like a different defender that's 100k cheaper or 50k cheaper
Yeah.
next week.
Like, yeah.
So that's why
Yeah,
I'm
makes
just saying,
sense.
like, weigh up what your next trade is next week.
Oh, you
And
got to look ahead.
going Stu isn't going to kill that for you, then like, yeah, he's gonna. I mean, I think we've all been saying, maybe not, but basically after round one, that he's the number one option that we would love to have that wasn't in our teams. It's just he didn't drop. He never dropped to 570, and now he's not going to drop anytime soon. So, yeah, I'm really confident he's going to continue to score well. He's got a safe floor, but it's just too much money. And I guess this is probably comes down to a little bit of philosophy and like strategy with our trading. How much are we going for value to upgrade teams versus just getting the best players in the line? I have skewed, I guess, a little bit more towards going for value and getting guys there that are close enough just so I can get a finished team. George, it sounds like you're leaning a little bit more towards just paying up for the big dogs.
If I can, ideally, because I think if you have enough trades left, I don't. But you can like finish your team with a like really strong. Because the defenders, you probably want your defenders going like 107 plus. You probably want your forwards going 105 plus. But it might be okay if you just have like a weak F6 or D6 and then like perfect everywhere else. Because you need Tom. If you want a perfect defense, you need Tom Stewart at some point. And if you're not getting him now, well, it's only going to get worse the next 5 or 6 weeks. Because that 187 will be in his cycle for a few weeks, so he's probably going to sit in the low to mid 600s for, I don't know, at least a month, I would expect. So you just kind of hope that at the buy he drops one, and if he doesn't, well, you got to pay up if you want the perfect defense. That's why I say pay 600 now if you can.
All right, so let's go over a different option then, where people were kind of falling over themselves a couple of weeks ago to get him in the same position, and that was Doherty. Who a lot of people brought in around that 575, 580k mark. He's dropped a little bit now down to 560 off a couple of, I guess, poorer games. There's still like decent scores, but I think his last 3 weeks have had an 86 and 91 in them. Is he someone that you still see as a top 6 defender option and a target post his buy? Or are we kind of seeing a little bit of a repeat of last year where he started off really well, but then faded as the year went on?
I think he faded because he played wing. Teague moved him out to cater for Zach Williams because Zach Williams couldn't play midfield. So Williams went back and then Doherty went on a wing. Then Doherty had the cancer issue, unfortunately. So his kick-ins are still pretty low. He shares them with like 4 other players. So I don't think like maybe you can get 115. I don't think 120 is certainly not sustainable, but like maybe like 110 to 115 range. He shares the buy with Shorts, Whitfield, and somebody else, George Stewart. I don't know how you can. It's
Ridley as well.
It's a little tough to get him in. So I think I'm just happy to wait post buy. I think his break even's high enough that unless he goes massive, he won't go up too much in price. So he's still a target I'm looking at. I think 560 is a decent deal for Doherty. Someone you're looking at,
Yeah, I won't have too much more. Just assess him for another month. I'm in the position to do so, and then see if he's the last defender that I want to get in. So, yeah, just get another look at him for a month. It's still going to be hard for him to play out the season, you'd think, because he had a lot of time off. So we'll see how he goes. But that's something I'm still a little bit hesitant on. But he's playing well. He's averaging got to be high 20s, almost 30 touches a game. So...
Next, I guess, player to talk about is one that I would rather we skip over, but was a great pickup by both of you two, I think, at 500k. And that is James Sicily up to 552,600 off a couple of really amazing games. Actually, his last 3 weeks have kind of been really good, averaging around that 120 mark over the last 3. I think it's 118. Still has a pretty achievable break even in 92 and could go up more. Is Sicily someone that you'd be advocating for people to get in, especially if they're looking for someone in the last buy, which is where he sits, right?
Yeah, so I think same price as Pendlebury and Crisp. So out of those three, I probably have Sicily, then Crisp, then Pendlebury. Love Pendles though, been really, really good the past few weeks. So yeah, I think you can pay 550 for him. I think that's fine. At this point, it's like, when he was 500, I was like, I better get him in. Like, I need to look for some value here. But now it's like you don't have to get Sicily anymore. So there are perfectly fine alternatives at a similar price. So yeah, you can get him in if you want, but not as high priority as it was the last few weeks. Wish I started him, but oh well.
Yeah, look, for me, if that 50k meant, or 50 something k meant a better upgrade next week than getting Stewart in, then I would definitely advocate for Sicily instead. I think he can go 105 to 110, so maybe 5 to 8 points per game less than Stewart, maybe for the rest of the season. But yeah, if that 50k is important, and make sure you get a good player next week, not someone skeptical like we were saying before, then I would definitely advocate for him.
Perfect. Moving on to, I guess, another option that shares that round 12 buy. It was the one we left off. So there's a fair few really good premium defenders that all have that first buy. Is Jack Sinclair. So he had gone 100 in each of his first 6 rounds, 100 plus. And then last week in Cairns, in the dewy, awful conditions against Port, dropped an 85. Now has a break even of 129, priced at 560k. And coming into a matchup against Melbourne this week. What are the thoughts on Jack Sinclair? Is this someone that you'd be looking to bring in post-buy to finish? Can you see him kind of going in that 105 plus range and being a serviceable option around the mark?
Yeah, I think he's a perfectly fine target. I think he's proven enough. Back half of last year was good. I think tough conditions this week. More than happy to bring him in after his buy. Pretty simple.
Yep, it's just similar. It's a Doherty one I'll assess, and then whoever looks the better option after their buy, I'll be looking at. So, yeah, I like John said, the conditions just didn't suit, and the fact that he still went 85 is actually pretty good. So, yeah, definitely still on the radar for sure.
And then next up on the list is one that we talked about, I think, a little bit earlier, especially around DPP changes and all that, in Dane Zorko. He would be the cheapest option we've discussed so far at 516k, break even of 107, but a good matchup in West Coast this week. He's moved around in a few roles so far. I guess, yeah, good question here on what have you thought about Zorko, and is this someone that you like as a discounted option to the ones we've talked about so far?
Not really, but he's moved, I think, 33% CBAs, moved back into the mids a little bit. His field kicking is pretty sublime. It's quite good to watch. Wasn't great to watch when we didn't own him last year, but he's good at it. He's a bit older. I guess, don't know if the Achilles is going to hold up throughout the year. I think he's a pass, but I think remember he had few really, really massive games last year, like 130 plus, had a 170 thrown in there playing mid. So still got it in him. Just a few too many question marks on durability for my liking, and role, I guess. Like, do they want to use him more forward later at some point? I guess we thought that maybe last year, but it didn't happen. So yeah, scoring power is there. Durability makes me a bit nervous, so I'll pass. But if you want to take a risk, I tried to take a risk on Hull, and it backfired really, really bad, and so I wouldn't go there again. But yeah, up to you if you want to go for that. What about you, Enno?
Yeah, it's just the age and injury that scare me. Like, he's actually playing pretty well. It's funny, he's got defender mid status, and he's probably playing more like mid forward this year. But I think because Kitty's come back, he's just pushed back to midfield forward role, and he was super yesterday. He could have kicked a couple more goals and finished with a bag, but just injury and age, they worry me too much. I don't want to trade in someone like that. Pendles is in the same boat. I'm pretty sure we've talked about it a couple of times. I just don't really want to be risking guys like that and having to use a trade. And especially maybe in this back half of the year, right, we're going to be out of boosts. And you just, I don't know, it probably isn't too much of an issue, but you could get 2 injuries in a week or something, or I don't know. And you just don't want to be dealing with that. So it's a risk I'd rather not take, if I'm honest. But I could totally see him averaging like 105 from here. So I don't totally hate on it. But yeah, that injury worry just kills me.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing on Zorko is that he has moved up to the 33% CBAs this week. So the upside is there that if he continues to get that role. But yeah, for all the reasons you've kind of mentioned, not one that I'm in love with, especially when it's not that much more expensive to get, say, a Sicily. And then finally, I guess one other comparable option to Zorko around the same price is one that you already mentioned, George, and that's Jordan Dawson, 516K, 125 break even, so could even potentially drop a little bit more. Has been pretty consistent with kind of around the 100 mark, basically, in all of his games, apart from the one where he kicked the winner and he went to 123, and then one a couple of weeks ago where he went 81. Thoughts on Dawson as an option? I think you mentioned you had him around, what, D15 or 16 from here?
Something like that. I think he can maybe push up a bit. I think Hinge should come back in the team this week, and then he'll hold, and then Brody Smith will come back from concussion, so he might move up the ground. So there might be a bit of upside for his scoring. I just figure at his price, and he has the middle buy, I think a lot of people will be looking for that type of player. Might fit the bill if you can't get up to Tom Stewart. So I would rather Tom Stewart. But Dawson seems like an option that for people in position, if they're slightly worried about cash gen or the trades, you could go for this sort of option. Otherwise, I'd pay up elsewhere. But I think there is upside at the price, and should be projected to be about 500K next week. So I think that's a decent price for someone who should average 100 for the rest of the year with upside. So yeah, just thought of one I'd put out there, but yeah, might have a few others going 105 to 110, even more. That you lose, I don't know, 5-10 points a game in the back half of the year, but at least you save some money, so it should help.
Yeah, I think the upside for Dawson, firstly, he's got, I guess, some safety in the sense he's taking the majority of Crow's kickouts at the moment, which is helping him not drop too many poor games. But I think there is some upside that he's been moved around a fair bit and hasn't really landed that perfect role within the Crows yet. So if that kind of clicks, you could see some upside. We also saw him come home really strong last season in the Swans, averaging 115 as a wing over that period. So yeah, depending on what happens here, might be in for something similar where has underperformed through the first half of the year and then has something that clicks for him to bring it home. Anything else to add, Eno?
Nothing. Just if he stays defense for the time being, Brody Smith usually takes the next amount of kick in. So, he usually takes 2 or 3 a week. So if, he'll be out, that'll help. And then, as you said, if Hinge comes back in, I think he'll start moving up the ground, and that's, again, a positive. So there are positives. It's just maybe as a non-owner, you want to wait and see if they come to fruition. So, yeah, I'll still have him on your radar for sure.
And then I guess there's one last option listed here, which I don't even know what we're talking about him, but I do have a quote prepared because it does remind me of the next player we're going to talk about. And that quote is that there's nothing in a caterpillar that tells you it's going to be a butterfly, just like how there's nothing in Lachie Whitfield that tells you he's going to be a premium. So why is he on the run sheet, guys? What's the Lachie Whitfield talk here at 433K?
Well, he's playing forward now. You need to watch that and get out of it sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
well,
that's a concern.
3 goals and 6 tackles and still didn't turn up.
Yeah,
he's D53 by average and 43 by total points. Oh boy.
When I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was on like 100% efficiency, had kicked a goal or two, and still had a negative fantasy to Supercoach ratio.
Really?
And at that point, you're like, yeah, this pick isn't going to work out. This is pretty bad.
I thought there was a chance that it'd work out because he'd be moved up the ground, but I didn't think they'd move him that far up the ground. So I think
it kicks a nice goals.
Yeah, he did. A few crumbing from stoppage as well. So you're a Whitfield owner, JD. He's still got first place. He's still got a bit of the ball in the back half of the ground, but he was more forward than I've ever seen him.
Yep. Do you know, the role reminded me a bit of Josh Kelly last year, which I owned for the first 6 weeks of the year as well, where he just was just saving his score by kicking goals. And it was giving me flashbacks to that, where it's like this most weeks is not a score in the 90s. It's much lower than that. And it's only been saved by the fact that he's managed to kick 3 goals and be fairly clean. But this could have gone the other way pretty badly.
Are you scared of the same thing happening again, where you eventually trade them out and then
Probably why I've held Whitfield for so long this year. It's like, no, I'm not going to let you get me twice, Leon. And no, this is, this one's real.
Oh, could you imagine that?
It's a difficult spot now because the price could tank because of the roll even further. But I don't think he's already pretty low, so I don't think it'd be too bad.
His break even this week's 92, and then assuming he scores okay, it actually I think goes lower than that as well, just because he's got some of his really poor scores rolling off. So yeah, I don't know. I think he should somewhat stabilize around this as long as he doesn't go really badly, which I am somewhat worried about with them playing the Cats this week, right? You could see him get stuffed in the forward line and Cats dominate and drops a pretty poor score. That'd be, I think, worst case. But GWS have looked a little bit better the last couple of weeks, so maybe their form as a team starting to turn, which can help. Definitely not an upgrade target for anyone post-buy unless you're really desperate, but I think you'd probably rather just hold Dacos or something at this point. Okay, moving on to the midfield, which is where really we've been focusing a lot of our time upgrading over the last 2 or 3 weeks, but I know some are going to be going back to the well and continuing to upgrade there at the moment. We've got a few cheaper options, which we briefly mentioned we'll go over in a second, but the one that we wanted to raise, I guess, some light alarm bells on is Jack Macrae. George, I think you were listing off some CBA stats for him. Have you got them in front of you in terms of how he's been tracking over the last few weeks?
Off the top of my head, it's 60, 53, 52, something like that. So
yeah, it was all 70s for the first month, and then
and the back half
60s.
Most of last year was in the 70s, except for the grand final. I remember that, but I guess it means I'm a little hesitant to put the captaincy on him. And if you're going to bring him in, he's going to drop further, and you can snap him up because I think the CBAs will go back up. But you can understand with how many mids they have, like they all want CBAs. Like even Bont had 73% when he was supposed to be playing forward apparently, and now he has the most out of all of them. So can't work out the coach there. So
Mate, Dunk's 23, it's just crazy.
At least Dunks he runs straight into the midfield. That's
I know,
he's not too bad, but he just finds it a bit better.
There's 6 guys, so it's just too many.
Yep.
So my take on this is, doesn't this coincide exactly with when Hunter came out of the side? And so they've had to rotate more through the wing, as well as kind of bring in basically non-wings to play wing. And that's why we've seen this a little bit.
So they're using, is it McComb?
McComb's being used as a wing, who I didn't want to talk about too much because we'll get to McComb later in the rookie section. But yeah, being used as a winger.
But I think McRae's more half forward. Like he's starting at half forward more rather than a wing. So which should be a little bit better than wing. I think if you don't have him, you bring him in still in a few weeks. And if you have him, I think we keep the seat off him for now. Although we've been through that before, I thought we were going to, when he played wing, I was like, I'm not going to captain him, bang, 150.
He still could have gone 110. He just started really slow and gave away a few free kicks, and that just, didn't help him trying to catch back up. So, yeah, 89's bad, but, any other day that could have been a 110. Not his best game, but, he's still got 28 touches. I'm not totally worried about him, but I think you're right in saying until the CBAs are back up, maybe just keep the captaincy off him for now. We've got plenty of options.
It's just because Neil and Cripps are going berserk every week, and we're I've missed both Neil's 200s basically, so you need to get on top of that.
Yep.
I mean, it's just hard to trust him when you've got Neil as an option basically every week. Even Oliver feels like he's a little bit more trustworthy than Macrae at the moment in that role. I think you're right, George. He could still pump out a really big score, especially against opponents like Port. But yeah, a bit hard to trust as a captain option at the moment, and it puts him in a really weird spot because for vice captaincy, I tend to prefer Dunkley anyway, just because he's got that higher ceiling than Macrae seems to have. So it's one that I kind of can't see myself now using in the short term until we see something fix up with the role. All right, we've got a lot of really nice value options in the midfield at the moment. I'm going to rattle off 4, and then I kind of want to hear a ranking or order in terms of priority you'd bring them in, and then any particular thoughts as you kind of go through that. And I might start with you. So the 4 we've got Took Miller 590k, we've got Brayshaw 580k. Track or Trapper at 560k, and then we of course have Cripps as well at 526k, which I think is probably the freebie in the list. But yeah, how would you order those up, and any thoughts on them as we kind of go through?
Yeah, as you said, I got to get Cripps in this week. That is the clear number one there. Just the price is stupid, and then I think if you take the injury game out, he's basically the number one scorer in the comp, along with Neil. So that's non-negotiable. The next 3 gets a little bit trickier. I think Track would be number 2 for me. He did look really impressive on the weekend. I know he had the poor game the week before. You're going to get that with Track, more ups and downs, but he does those massive games in him, and the price again comes into play here. So I'll put him number 2, and then the next 2 is really tough. But that Took got back to his best on the weekend. The first quarter was, again, the last month has been like that every first quarter. But to score 150 points in the next 3, he looked back to his absolute best. And that 85 break even means you pretty much got to snap him up now at under 600 and then get him, because you won't be able to really get him at that price ever again, I'd imagine. And then for me, that puts Brayshaw 4th, even though I don't know if I think he's the 4th best there. Maybe he is, but he will drop some more with 157 break even. So you can wait another week on him. I still don't hate getting him in at this price. They have North this week. That's easily attainable for Bray. He can go nuts, especially at home. So I still don't hate getting him in this week, but I'd have him at 4. You didn't want me to rank him, right? So
yeah. So Cripps 1, Petrarca 2, Took Miller 3, Brayshaw 4. George,
correct.
How do you feel about that list? Anything you'd like to change or add?
I think Cripps is 1 at the price. I think I have Took at 2, just because of his ceiling last year is higher than the other 2. Track 3 for Brayshaw. I think you can go Brayshaw over Track, but the 20k is kind of nice to save. So yeah, Took's second. I think is the only difference there.
Yep.
Okay, and I think George, your kind of ranking is where I would have naturally had them, just because I have that ultimate faith in Took that I probably don't have in Petrarca. And we haven't mentioned anyone on there, kind of like a Tom Green or a Ben Keys, who kind of fit in that price range as well. You wouldn't have either of those against any of the 4 ahead of the 4 we've already listed, or even like a Tom Mitchell. I don't think so. He still hasn't been that good.
No.
Nope. Okay,
they're still fine if you want them though.
They're still fine. Yeah. What? Yeah.
Okay, so then the only question I have here, especially when it comes to Brayshaw and Petrarca as options, how many of that last buy is too many in the midfield? So I know there are, many teams that might have 3 of these already, or 3 of the round 14 buy with Neil, Oliver, and then already having one of Petrarca or Brayshaw. Is 4 too many? Is 3 kind of the limit? What are your thoughts on this?
I think it is, right? Because the Rucks have the same buy, George, don't they?
No, not anymore, because we all had gone Grundy Darcy at the start of the year. So
right.
But now we
not
have
Grundy, because he's not a thing. Go on if you've got him. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, now we have Bruce Hayes, who should, fingers crossed, both. Lysette will still be out, so we expect Hayes to play in round 14, and Bruce, well, maybe hopefully makes it to round 14 somehow. So we should
Darcy
have one
Gorn
on the bench.
owners do though, so they're still
but
down one, but they might have the cover. Yeah. Okay.
I think you could go 4 in the mids, depending on the rest of, if you're like full in your other lines. Like if you're fielding 2 in the rucks, you're fielding 6 forward, 6 back, you think you could go 4, because you're trading out a lot of players on their buy, such as Dacos, maybe O'Driscoll, maybe if you want to upgrade Brody, for example. It just depends on where you're at. If you have more than 7 out that buy round, then you probably can't do it. But you just try and figure out, because a lot of the players, a lot of the rookies that we get right now, we might be able to hold through. Like Greg Clark, we can probably hold through, keep fielding him at M8. McComb probably be gone by then. Maybe Carroll we hold through the buys. Don't know. So it just depends on how many players you have out and whether you can, if you're fielding enough 2 in the rucks and 6 in the other lines. You should be fine to have 4 out, if not 3.
Yeah,
I'll have 3 anyway. I can't do 4.
I think for those that are flush on trades, you could potentially go to 4 anyway. And if the situation's bad enough, you just sideways out of whoever's underperforming at that point. So like that's potentially an option. Probably not ideal, but it's not the end of the world either. Okay, no, good stuff. All right, so Rucks, the big topic here for people is for those that have Bruce and Hayes, the praise combo, feeling a little bit of pressure last week after Hayes dropped to 53. Now, like the theory for how this is meant to work is that, yes, other people have gone where you have Hayes, but your Hayes is meant to be better than, say, whatever rookie they were fielding, which might have been a Roses or a Durden or an O'Driscoll or whatever it is, and you've instead got an extra premium in that position that then makes up the points. This last week felt really bad for those in the praise situation because Hayes went 53, which is about the same as all those other poor rookies that I mentioned. And then Gawn basically went better than whichever primo you would have had elsewhere. So you ended up losing points last week pretty badly, but a little bit unfortunate in the sense that Gawn had what was always going to be a big matchup, right? Like if you had him, the vice captaincy or captaincy on him was obvious from a mile away, and he delivered on that. And then Hayes had really unfortunate conditions with the Cairns weather, making it hard to get hit out to advantage because you don't have mids winning the ball cleanly, and it also is harder for a big man to get involved around the ground because in those dewy conditions you don't want to be kicking to a ruck to collect a handball or whatever it may be. So it wasn't getting used in the way that you would expect to.
How many goals were kicked? 8?
8. Yeah, exactly.
So,
not good conditions. So yeah, ultimately, like last week was quite bad. And Gawn is now at 677k, and he's in the same boat as Stewart in the sense that you get him this week or he's gone. I mean, for me, he's already gone. Gawn's gone at 677k. It's a huge price to pay. But you just can't see him coming down in the next couple of weeks because he's going to have sub 100 break evens for both of those games. And he's got St Kilda, West Coast, and North, and then the next 3. So, yeah, very scary for non-owners, Max Gawn at the moment. But we ultimately come back around to the original question, which is if you're a praise owner and you've got Hayes sitting at R2, should you be moving mountains to bring in Gawn at 677k? And George, from what I saw in your video this week, you're leaning towards yes. So do you want to talk us through that?
I'd love to. And this is part of not owning Gawn. He sees that all these idiots have rookie rucks, and he's like, I'm going to score 200 on these idiots and ruin their season. I think he gets a kick at night. Probably not, but anyone that doubts, he seems like the type. Yeah, anyone that doubts Gawn, he's just like, okay, next week we'll see. I'll get best on ground. It always happens. It's inevitable. So, remember there was a few years ago, someone walked up to him and said, I think it might have been on the news or something. He's like, don't trade me out of your Supercoach team. And he was like injured or something. But anyway, if you can, I would get Gawn. Just get it over with. I know Hayes has a good matchup this week. Gawn has Ryder Marshall. But I guess the week after is the Stronica, maybe Bailey Williams, Hugh Dixon matchup. If the D-Smids are in the mood that game, that could be, I don't know, that could be a bloodbath like we've never seen. But
just rest Gawn, give Jackson some airtime over in WA,
Just kidding.
Give Jackson some time in Western Australia.
Paying 700 for a player never works. It never does. Paid 700 for McRae, he played on a wing. Paid 700 for Gawn back then. He got injured, I think. So, but the thing is, I think you kind of just got to get it done. So if you can, I have 300 in the bank because of Grundy last week. I'm going to do it. If you have to ruin a few things, probably don't worry about it. Like you could go, if you didn't have Cripps or Parker, and you can get those 2 instead of Gawn, I would go that route. But otherwise, if you can't get Parker for whatever reason and you can get to Gawn, I would just get it done and get to Gawn. So it depends on your team. So, my fear is that I'm paying 680 for him and then they just, let's manage him a bit more for the rest of the season, let Jackson rock a bit more. So, but I think you have to have him eventually. Might as well be while he has a 98 break even going into a dream matchup in 2 weeks.
Eno, thoughts?
I'm with you. He's gone. Gone. just got to pray that around the buys, he drops, a low ton or maybe even a sub ton, which is probably wishful thinking, but he does get some actual opponents coming up. Besides the Shenanigan game, he does get, Ryder and Marshall. He gets Goldstein, who's rucking at the moment, gets Darcy. So that's 3 proper ruck teams with rucks in the next month. We all know Gorn can still beat him and he can still score well elsewhere doing other things. So that's the worry. But, I think the big thing was him. He's nailing all his goals now. He used to spray set shots left, right, didn't know where they were going. Now he's nailing them from 55 almost every time. He takes a mark. I'm like, yep, here's a goal. He's actually kicking really well. So, to be honest, he's pretty much the best ruckman since Dean Cox. To be honest, he's insane how good he is and influence on games. So, I don't know why we sort of talked ourselves out of it round 1, but I know you didn't, George, but he's gone. So. I just think he's gone too much.
Yourself, George,
too much.
Which is my preferred way to podcast. But yeah, sorry, what were you saying?
We probably didn't want to talk about it, to be honest.
Well, I didn't want to pick him in the first place. No one really did because we thought that he'd replicate his back half of the year, which would make him overpriced. But yeah, we were wrong.
I think the most impressive thing as well is he's clunking all his marks and he's getting to better positions. It's not just that he's marking stuff now, but he's actually in the right spots to intercept and take forward 50 marks and stuff, more so than what I've seen in previous years. So it's somewhat surprising to see his craft still improving. And so it's not just the skills have gotten better, but the game IQ and where his positioning seems to be better this year as well, which is pleasant for Gorn owners and absolute pain for anyone else. We'd be remiss not to mention, I guess, the only other viable primo ruck at the moment, which would be Jared Witts, with Darcy obviously coming off the concussion and still maybe some money to lose there. So he's at 557K, 45 break even. Would you consider him? He's averaging 117, which is only 9 off Gorn for the year so far. And he's got some softer ruck matchups still to come, I think, with Swans this week, for example. Would you consider Witts for people that can't fork out the, basically 120K extra for Gorn?
Haven't really thought about it, to be honest. I just expect regression and it just doesn't happen. You could. I'd rather just get Gorn. I don't know what to say. I'm not sure if Witts keeps this up, but he looks like he is. So I think Gorn, is more likely to maintain. Is he on 130 this year? I guess he is. I think Witts. Yeah, I think it's fine. Witts has looked good. He's just getting all these easy beats in the taps, in tap work. It's getting more coming up. So if you could only get to him, I guess it's okay. But I'll just get to Gorn if you can.
Yeah, he does have Hawks coming up, the Bulldogs.
Of course he does.
Yeah.
But Bulldogs will have English back. Oh, wait, that kind of doesn't matter. Sorry, I just realized
his money.
Yeah, he'll kill him around the ground, but he'll smash him in the tap.
Is it possible
Darcy
to have a career year, not just a career year, a 20 point per game better career year at 30 off an ACL? That's pretty wild. It's got to come back. Surely.
It doesn't make sense, right? It just does. Yeah. It's one of those things where you just put it down on the so on. I was struggling to see him average 100, which is his best. Yeah. The only thing that really changed from his previous best year to now is just that the midfield on paper was going to be better with Miller, Rao, and Anderson in there. So he'd better mids to tap too. But anyway, that's it's been a bit wild, that one. All right, so moving on to the forwards, lots of value to be had here as well. A little bit like the midfield in the sense we're probably flush for options here. It's just kind of picking out the best ones. So we might do the same as what we did in the mids. There's 3 that we've got listed here. So Parker at 510K, DeGoey at 473K, and then Taranto, who's around 500K but has a pretty large break even at 131. How would you rank these in terms of priority to bring in your side this week?
Throw Heaney in there as well at 535.
Sure. You never miss a chance to talk about Heaney. Let's throw him in.
He's in the bracket. So who would I want out of these? Number 1, I think, is Luke Parker. The role is just the best out of all of them. I guess DeGoey's role is still good. So definitely Parker is very free this week. He's 1. 2 Heaney, 3 Taranto, 4 DeGoey.
Eno.
I think I'd have it the same. Yeah, I think I'd have it the same. Maybe to go against ahead of Taranto, but it's hard just with the role he played on the weekend. I'm sure it was a gastro thing. They had a few players under the weather, and he was clearly probably the biggest one. So I'd want to see that before trading him in, see him go back in there. But that would be my only swap with Taranto, maybe having him ahead of Taranto. Just I don't know with Timmy T. Like he has the scope, he gets enough touches, he just always butchers it, and
Yeah.
I don't know. We've only before, and it hasn't been pretty. I just don't want to do it again.
2020. His CBAs is 50%.
They're enough. They're enough.
Yeah. So I think for me, Parker would be the obvious one this week at 5'10". I think he's got a low break even. The other really nice part about Parker is just his durability, which some of the others that we'll talk about don't necessarily have the same runs on the board that he has. And he's also got the premium scoring history as a midfield. So a 105 for him seems very achievable and not out of it doesn't require anything extraordinary to make that happen. Taranto, I would actually probably have last at the moment, just because I think he's going to be a good option, just not this week for me. The higher break even and them having the first buy doesn't make him as appealing. So if you've got Butters, Cogs, Nick Martin, they're all the first buy as well. Adding Taranto into that mix is one that I don't like. So more of a last upgrade or a swapping an underperformer to Taranto at the end would be where my head would be at. And then it's pretty hard. Like DeGoey, I like more than Heaney in general. So I'll just back in DeGoey, even though this is probably wrong. I love the CBAs. So yes, DeGoey's had 2 really poor weeks. I'll back him in to bounce back from that. Once he's feeling better, the role is better than Heaney's, despite Heaney playing out of his mind for the most part. So yeah, I guess just given that he's 50k cheaper and he's got the last buy, which I don't know, is probably better for a lot of teams. I don't think there's too many forward primos with that last buy where, Heaney shares it with Parker, Dunkley, English when he comes back as well. So yeah, I guess I'm using buys as a bit of a crutch here to justify picks, but I'd have to go just ahead of Heaney as a result of that.
Can I just say on Luke Parker, if you're not getting in Parker this week, I think you're in trouble. Can I read out his scores from last year in the back half? Because I'm sure we've all owned Parker in the past, and he's been very patchy. But last year, post-buy, 116, 95, 132, 128, 122, 110, 108, 148, 110, 112.
And we've got him as a forward.
It's a joke.
I think this
is so bad.
If you're like me and don't have Cripps, you have to get Cripps, which I'm sure we're going to answer later. And if you do, it's Parker. Like over Stewart, over Gawn, in my opinion, you've just got to get Parker. The value, you'll probably quicker to get the next upgrade. He's clear top 6 forward. He's probably top 3.
So this is third. Perfect segue to, I'm sure we'll get multiple combinations of this question, and I'm glad we've had it here already. So there are a lot of teams that won't have either of Cripps or Luke Parker, and they'll be asking, do I trade in Parker this week or Cripps this week? And for me, the answer is Cripps. Lower break even, better matchup this week. Or actually, maybe not a better matchup. Swan's matchup
same, if you want to say.
And Parker's got good history against them. But yeah, lower break even, and outside of his injury game, he's probably averaging nearly 140, probably close to what Neil's been averaging. I think it's just Cripps this week. It has to be, despite I guess elevated injury risk and in a more competitive position on your field than Parker. Would you both agree that Cripps is ahead of Parker as a option this week?
He definitely is, and even as an option, score-wise and everything, that's the only consideration. The last thing you said, it's my on-field. I've got to field another crap rookie at F6 for one more week. That's the only thing that's kind of you're going to have to pay. The cash difference is going to be more because you expect Cripps to go up by more than Parker. But again, Parker has a big ceiling. It's not like he can't either. I think I just got to go Cripps and accept that I'll have to pay $550 for Parker the week after. I just think that's the way I have to go.
$550 for Parker is still pretty good.
Correct.
In the forward line. So, I think you either go Cripps. I think high ceiling, lower break even, both. I
Yeah.
guess over 2 weeks. And I think you're playing it right.
What happened? Josh Kelly just went 150 on the Crows.
Yep.
Cripps can do the same.
And then
We don't have a matchup for Cripps, but yeah.
So I'll slightly extend this out then, which is the other two, and this is like diametrically opposed theories, right? We're looking at the two best value premium options. I'm going to throw in probably the two overpriced or top price premium options in Stewart and Gawn that people are looking to bring in this week. Would you advocate to people to bring in Stewart or Gawn over Cripps or Parker?
I can't.
My structure Parker doesn't work for my structure, unfortunately. There are too many mid-price forwards that are scoring well, and I'd rather just get crap off the field in defense, or at R2, which is getting up to Gawn. So honestly, I think I'll end up going flipping like Lipinski to Parker and just pay maybe 5. Hopefully I can pay 550 for Parker or something during that buy round. If not, then damn. But yeah, it just doesn't work for me. So
it sounds like the only caveat would be if you've got underperforming rookies in other spots where the point difference kind of justifies it. So it's like very team dependent structural that you might have a Stewart or a Gawn ahead of one of these other two.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you're flexible across all lines and it's helping you anyway, then you wouldn't
Parker.
advocate.
Absolutely. Yeah. You go for Parker or Cripps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So moving into the next section then, which is the rookies. So a lot that could be traded out this week. Do we just want to list off ones that we think are fine to trade? I mean, we could be doing that for a little while. Where do we start? Horn Francis could go this week. O'Driscoll could go this week. Dixon could go this week. O'Driscoll's got a good matchup, but it's 77 break even, right?
He can hit that against North.
Yeah.
He's good enough too.
Look, there isn't really anyone that's like a non-negotiable. They all are expendable. In my opinion, Dacos would be the only one I still would want to hold, but it is team dependent. I just don't think if he's you want to go. I just think you've got something else going on somewhere. Surely, like he's just an easy hold for me. But I can see people I've seen people wanting to get rid of him just so they can afford Stewart, for instance. Like, in my opinion, that's not something you do. Like, you got to bite the bullet on Stewart and look for value elsewhere. So I'll be holding Dacos, but all these other guys are expendable, in my opinion.
I'm starting to come around to the idea that Dacos is a bit more expendable if you need the money to get up to an Uber premium. I think I'm going to hold, though.
It's a tricky one because he could definitely make more money from here, and all it takes is another good score to kind of restart that process. He's also got the last buy, which is really useful for rookies just because you can upgrade him through that buy period and kind of get extra points on field as a result. The big question mark with Dacos is what's happening with the foot and the rumors around. Well, it's not even rumors, right? They've talked about they're managing him through it a little bit. But there were rumors that he might get rested. And so if he's playing through a stress problem in his foot or something like that, or a hot spot or whatever it may be, you could see more poor scoring, which does, I think, make him expendable. We're kind of still in our minds thinking like 80 to 85 average, which is what he's done to this point. But if it's actually closer to 70 to 65 average, then he's really not a big upgrade over a McCartan or a Hinge on field, and he probably is quite expendable. So I think that's probably the thing you have to weigh up. Does whatever is happening in the background there affect his score by 10 points or so a week? And if so, then yeah, I'd say he is actually expendable at the moment.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. I just think he can go 75 to 80 still till he's buy and be around 400k, and that's just points on field for me. If Minge comes back this week, since he's sitting at my D7, it might tempt me because I think he can somewhat match him for points in the right role. So then maybe I go, okay, Dacos hasn't got much more to make, then he's expendable and my points won't change on field. That's maybe the only reason I would consider it in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, agree.
Okay, so lots of good options to trade out. What about options to trade in? There's some on the bubble, and then we've got actually a fair few first gamers that debuted and had good scores. So let's go through first the 102k midfielder Robbie McComb, who's a mature age recruit for the Dogs, put up massive numbers in the VFL, and has come into play not his traditional position at the Dogs. So I guess I can start by talking about him a little bit. So he's playing wing for them and has come in with Hunter out. He is not a normal winger, and Bevo in his press conference was talking about how like his natural instinct is to ball hunt. And there was a point in that game against Essendon where he cost them a goal because he'd come in basically to ball hunt rather than holding his structure and position on the wing. But that was relayed to him, during the game and basically coached on the fly. And he held his position well and didn't let that happen again the rest of the game for the most part, is what he said. So some like negatives and some good parts in that. I think from observing his game as well, there's a couple of other concerns. His kicking wasn't great. And I'm not actually sure what his reputation was as a kick coming into the league or what he was like in the VFL last year. But as a winger, his kicking definitely looks at the poorer end. And we saw him have a really good game on the sheet in terms of over 20 touches, 2 goals, and that translates to just the 63 Supercoach points, which is a bit of a concern as well. So lots of, I guess, pros and cons with McComb, but Bevo did mention that he was going to play again this week. So it looks like he should be coming through at least for that third game. Thoughts on Robbie McComb? George, let's start with you.
My initial thought was he turned it over so much. I was like, surely he doesn't hold his spot. But listening to Bevo, looks like he's going to play. He said he played his role for the team, which is probably the most important thing. So that, guarantees his job security for next week at least. He did some good things, kicked 2 goals. I think the upside and the price helps as well, but the upside might be outweigh the risk with one of these picks, given mature body. So, good VFL numbers, as you said. So, I'm actually going to bring him in this week.
Yeah, I'm bringing him in. The question with him is who's going to take his spot or who could take his spot. And we don't know with Hunter when he'll be back or what the go is there. There's Riley West in the twos. I don't think Bevo's really want to go with him. He's shown that in the past. So I can't really see anyone else taking his spot. I think Crozier is still playing twos maybe, but it's still a different position. He's more of a halfback. So I guess he can play wing. That's the only thing. But I think, as you guys said with the Bevo comments, he's played well enough to hold his spot. If he plays his third game, I'll bring him in. So
perfect. Yeah, and I think I'm looking to bring him in at the moment just because 102k, really good price point, does have the scoring upside. I think even though his use wasn't great, the fact that he's still able to find it 20 plus times on the wing is a good sign going forward for him. And you should have games where he puts it together and the disposal isn't as bad as what we've seen. Just quickly before we move on to the next rookie, kind of breaking news from Ryan Daniels as we're recording this. Alex Witherden's going to be out this week with health and safety protocols, as well as Jackson Nelson. So people will ask, why hasn't Witherden been talked about the defenders as an option again this week? Well, don't bring him in. He's going to be not playing this week. All right. Next rookie is the name that I don't want to pronounce because I don't know how to. I think, George, you pronounced it earlier. The West Coast Ruck.
Spaghetti Renatica. No, Stranatica, I think. Just quickly, Nelson out. That's free Lockie Neil captain because he's tagged this year. So we'll just see on Neil this week. Stranatica, well, we don't know the timeline of Bailey Williams' injury. It's not up yet. It's usually up like Tuesday mornings. I think the clubs update him from memory. So Stranatica is better than Bailey Williams. I think they want to persist with Bailey Williams because they've developed him and they've put time into him and he just hasn't come good, but I feel like they've committed now. BJ Williams, he's not.
I think they're both no good. Yeah, like
Stranatica competed a bit better. I thought his follow up was all right. You didn't like his work, or he only had 10 hit outs, but
no, that's what I mean. His follow up actually not bad. Yeah, but the hit outs aren't there.
So I think if he has guaranteed job security with Bailey J. Williams out, you could go for it. But I think what's happened is we've had an influx of rookies this week and last week. where they're perfectly suitable replacements other than him. But otherwise, he might be a nice one. BJ Williams hamstring, we don't know the timeline. What's hamstring? 2 to 4 weeks, I guess, usually. So if that's the case, then the job security might not be as good as what we'd hope for. So unless BJ Williams out for 6, I think you could bring him in. Otherwise, he could lose his spot. So I'm going to pass.
Yeah, it's triggering. This is, I think, the one advantage that Prey's owners have over Gone or Wits owners, whatever it may be, is you can actually get an extra rookie at 1 or 2K in that line that others can't have, and these tend to make a lot of money. But I think you're right. It comes down to what does his job security looks like, because if it's no good, then it's a dead pick really quickly. All right. There's a couple of other 2-gamers worth talking about as well, just quickly. So Neil Erasmus looks like he's coming back in for Freo this week, a 64 average through 2 games. Any looks at him, or are you too worried about job security?
No, too many other good options. He's good but not
price, job security, not enough. But it'd be good to see him get a game because they got a few outs, I think, with COVID. So.
Yeah, if you could guarantee like the next 10 games from Erasmus, he'd shoot up my list. But it's just, I don't think realistic with Freo, and looks like he's only going to come in through.
I think 5's not too far away.
Yeah, that as well.
Which pushes him down a little bit further. All right, and then Paul Curtis, 117k forward for North. Kind of a small forward that works up the ground a bit, competes well. Actually really liked his game. I think his job security is probably pretty rock solid given the effort that he was putting in. But yeah, scoring potential is a big worry in that role. And given a lot of people already have Durden, Roses, Dixon, McDonald, whoever it may be on their rookie bench, don't want to put any of these people on field. So for me, it feels like it's a really hard week to bring in Paul Curtis, unless you're one of the few coaches that aren't already benching 2 of those a week in your forward line.
I like him. I like what I've seen from him. In the Geelong game, I was really impressed. He had like 5 shots on goal. Could have kicked more. I think he kicked like 1 goal, 3, and missed one altogether. And then I didn't catch too much of the Carlton game, but scored the same. Tackles from what I can see. Of course, the role's crap. It's like Roses, small forward in not a great team. So there's going to be some poor ones, but I do like the look of him, and I think the job security is rock solid. So I might bring him in for a boost this week just to get a downgrade so I can upgrade next week without using one. But I actually like what I've seen from him. What about you, George?
I think he'd be 4th on my rookie priorities behind we'll get to Carroll and Clark plus Macomb as well. So I have him behind them. So yeah, if you have all of them, or you better for your structure, I guess you could go for it. Otherwise, I'm not too worried passing on him.
Great. Yeah, this is a really good segue, George, because there's a lot of rookies that have played 1 game this week that look like good downgrade options this week. And they look good enough to the point that we would break a typical rule of Supercoach, which is don't trade in a rookie before they're on their bubble. But yeah, with a plethora of really good options next week, it looks like we may actually break that rule this week and bring in some of the better ones just to make sure we can fit in all of those good downgrade options over the next couple of weeks. So jumping into them, there's one, Greg the Leg Clark, that Eno already brought in this week and fielded for a 104. I know it's an option that also brought us a lot of joy in fantasy this week, where he was a 110 on field or something ridiculous like that as well. He was someone that was in every single one of our sides on the field as an M8 in the preseason right up until he went down with the shoulder injury. He is a no-brainer this week, right? He's number 1 priority to bring into your team by far.
You can go Macomb this week and then get Clark in next week if that's how you're planning for it. Otherwise, just get him this week or next week, preferably this week. Get him on field.
Yeah, now I obviously wouldn't expect the 100-plus average, but it's not unrealistic to think he could kind of go around what Nick Martin and Dacos is, around that 80 mark, which is still incredibly high for a rookie. So yeah, pegging him at a really high standard, but it seems achievable. Just natural ball winner, good with it in hand, and West Coast is crying out for talent at the moment, and he seems like he'll have both good job security and good scoring potential going forward.
I think he'll win their best and fairest from here.
Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me. All right. So next is one that came a little bit out of left field. So Jack Carroll, he is someone that slid in his draft year. and got to Carlton later on than what was expected, but was praised, I think, a lot by recruiters outside of obviously those drafting on the night. Came in and debuted with a 95, which is an incredible score against a pretty poor North outfit. For me, this feels like a little bit harder to bring in on the one game just because Carlton had so many outs last week and a lot of them to come back. You know, you've got Hewitt, Williams, maybe like a Setterfield as well. So I think a bit of a wait and see, but if he gets through and is named for his third game, Jack Carroll is looking like a really promising downgrade option. George, sorry, firstly, I don't think any of us would disagree with that kind of a view. But George, you mentioned that you might have him ahead of McComb as a downgrade option this week. Do you want to walk us through that?
Oh, I'd probably have McComb maybe first above him. I can't remember what I said, what order I said. Look, I haven't watched. I didn't see the game. I can't really comment too much, but I know he's been really good in the VFL. Been in the bests just about every week in the VFL team, and very high talent, as you said. So, extra year in the system kind of fits the bill. Performed well at the level, although it was against North. Probably give him another week though. I think you'd go early on Clark over Carroll, or just go McComb this week. I kind of just want all three of those. So wait and see how he goes. Now, job security. So he played wing. That's correct, I think. So he's competing with Setterfield. Who else?
Setterfield,
I don't know.
Pretty much.
Nunes.
Yeah. Sounds like he played better than them. So I'd give him another week.
Because Stocker got injured, so that's easy in for Williams if he's ready.
Yeah.
Hewitt comes in, of course, and then I think it's just he's got to keep Setterfield out of the team. So you got to wait on that, surely.
Yeah, I'll just wait on that, I guess. Yeah. Should have got the Rising Star, probably, looking at numbers, but...
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, Clark's not eligible, neither would McComb or anything like that. So
I think they gave it to Horn Francis.
Due, but yeah, probably not the week to pick Horn Francis, for being honest.
Anyway.
All right, next, a rookie from the Forbidden team. This would be Cooper Hamilton, a 102k forward mid from the Giants. Thought he looked really good, actually. Scored 68 on the weekend, but against Adelaide, once again, not the stiffest opponents. Has Geelong this week. So I think it's a little bit of a wait and see how he performs against a better side and if he holds, but was really impressed. And I think he serves as another really good downgrade option potentially for next week.
Not sure. Don't know if he holds his spot. He looked good, looked comfortable, played a bit behind the ball. He's like ready-made, I think, like 85 kilos, something like that. Or it was like 185 centimeters. Pretty big lad already. I just think there's better options that have had a few more pre-seasons at AFL level. And I'm not sure about job security, so I think he's okay. I think I need another week to assess this one. Can't go early.
Yep. And then, so I guess if you don't go Strandiker, or however you pronounce that, the other one that popped up this week was Aiden Begg, who debuted for Collingwood and I think played kind of more second ruck to Cameron, I believe. If you look at
54 CBAs of Cameron, 46 to Begg. In case you're wondering why Witt scored 135.
136.
Except he only had 2 hit-outs, Begg, so his follow-up work was good.
Yeah,
kicked the goal.
Yeah, managed to score. Managed to score 81. This wasn't a game I got to watch closely, which is probably good for my health given what happened with DeGoey. Did either of you get to watch Begg, and what were your thoughts on him?
I watched a little bit. Like I was a little bit impressed from him just for a first gamer, but I don't think it's something that's totally like repeatable too often. So look, he doesn't have to do much being 102k, right? So
I think he's 123k. No, 123.
Okay.
Ruck only.
Yeah, I just don't know where he fits. I think you'd have to be a praise owner, obviously, and then him be your R3. But I think I'd still like him over Stranatica, but I need to see it again.
Yeah. Same boat.
which is the same with a lot of these guys.
I think he was just asked to compete and follow up well, which he did. But he's 19. How putting him against the Wolves basically, pretty tough ask, and there's going to be some bad scores in there. So not one I really want on the field, and not one we can really fit in. So probably pass, but still he goes next week.
All right. And then one I've added onto the list for completeness just because of how well he scored, and that's Maurice Rioli, 123k forward. Put a 92 up on the weekend in that dominant win over West Coast. Eno, what would you like to tell us about Rioli?
Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
Yeah,
he played well. He what do they call it? He feasted on the carcass, mate. Just got 3 junk time goals handed to. I mean, he did it right.
He
one
had
of them was a
2
nice
in about
goal.
20 seconds.
Yeah. Look, a couple were nice goals, but let's be honest, there's not much to take from that game. I think he holds his spot for a couple of weeks more, but he's like a 20 score candidate on a given week, so I just wouldn't touch it.
All right. And then so to wrap this bit all up, because we've gone over all of them in a bit of detail, in terms of priority to trade in this week, how would you rank them up from let's say 1 to 4, because beyond that's probably a little bit redundant
for these rookies?
For
this week 1 McComb because it's this week, 2 Clark. That's all I would do this week, and then 3 Carroll, 4 I feel like I'm missing
Curtis.
somebody here. Yeah, 4 Curtis. That's the one.
Yeah,
it's not on the list here. Yeah, I'd go like that. Oh no, Curtis is on.
He's on the bubble, so he's ahead of Carroll.
Yeah, he's ahead of Carroll then for this week. Yeah.
I got the same then. Already got Clark, but I'd be tempted to even say him over McComb. But if you're only getting 1 rookie, I think you have to get McComb and just wait another week on Clark. As much as you've brought in his points on field, same order. McComb, Clark, Curtis, and Carroll.
And then next week we get a new forward downgrade, Isaac Rankin, sub 200k.
Really?
You dropped a 2?
Yeah.
You dropped a 2 or 3?
3 or something. Yeah.
How was he injured?
know.
What happened?
No.
Oh no. All right, let's quickly go into vice captain then before we go to the Twitter questions, which is what will close us out. So a couple of players already mentioned, but George, what are you thinking for vice captain this week? Who do you like?
I'll do a Donkey VC Heaney and then just C Neil versus West Coast with no tagger. That's free. Just because I don't want it to. I see someone that can do a massive score. Yeah. If I can somehow do Neil into Cripps, I can, but they both play Sunday. So, no, Neil plays Saturday.
George.
Who's
the
he
VC's
playing?
on him. Yes.
All right.
VC on track, and then, as you said, Neil C. I think that's safe.
Yeah, so I have Dunkley vice captain into Neil captain at the moment. But that's primarily just because of where the loopholes are going to be. So it's probably just Stevens for me this week at the moment is what it looks like. But who knows? Last couple of weeks we've said that, and then we've had a few come from the heaven. So just based on having to pick someone before that Swans Gold Coast game, it looks like one of the doggies, and with what we've talked about already, Dunkley being the vice captain option of choice. But with that said, if you're someone that does have a later loophole like a Machado Owens, I think it opens up a little bit for you where you could even consider like VC Neil into Captain Cripps. Or I really like, I guess, Brayshaw against North on Friday night as another option as well for someone that could go really large.
Yeah, I do have Owen, so I could do that on Neil, but it feels like, what's the upside? If you maybe had Gorn or something, or I'll stick with the Shrek.
There's 2 Friday night games. I didn't realize that.
They're shortly apart as well, which is really frustrating.
An hour apart.
Yeah.
McRae does well at that oval, but I guess we spoke about that before. But you could still VC him if you want. Nah, see Neil.
Yes.
I just want it on Neil this week.
All right. So let's jump into the Twitter questions. And first off, friend of the podcast in Tim, who obviously writes and works for Herald Sun. So if you went Hayes R2 and no Gone, do you give him another chance or just get Max? So
if you get was going to say if you can get Max next week, then do it. I think this week Hayes might do okay Friday night. So just depends if you can fit Parker in, which you probably can. So I'd probably prioritize Parker first and get Max next week if you can. Otherwise, just upgrade around it and then pay 700 later for Max.
Yeah, that's my view. Wait later on.
All right, next question from Jacob. Would it be worth double downgrading this week to have 400k in the bank next week, or go down to one boost to get Parker in? If I go double downgrade, I'll be fielding Clark, Dacos, Martin, Hayes, Bruce, and Horn Francis.
Boost.
Okay. Yeah, boost. All right, easy.
Get Parker on field for Horn Francis.
Yeah, points on the field is worth a lot more than the money in the bank. And Parker's going to go up in price. Yep. All right. Is fielding praise plus upgrading around them now a losing strategy? Getting up to gone instead of track this week means Dacos gone with Paddy and Nod on the field this week versus Dacos and Hayes fielder. It's hard to read. But yeah, effectively is fielding praise a losing strategy now.
I don't think you lose too bad because there's a 600k gap between what people paid for Gone and what people paid for Sam Hayes, or 550k gap. So I don't know, what does Score need out? Scoring by 50 every week, which is probably still going to happen, but might lose out a little bit, but I don't think it'll be too bad.
What did he say, JD, with the rookies? Like going Gone means he has...
Getting up to Gone instead of Petrarca means Dacos gone with Paddy and Nod on field this week versus Dacos and Hayes field.
I'll just get track. Keep Dacos and Hayes on the field. Paddy may not even be back. Nod hasn't been scoring too well. I reckon you make up the ground there. The track can still score well. Yeah.
Getting the D's midfielders are like a mini hedge to Gone, because if he's tapping well, then like they should be scoring well, you'd hope. But yeah. All right. What rookies are worth getting in this week, keeping an eye on? So already been discussed, but the priority ranking from George and Eno was McComb 1, Clark 2, Curtis 3, Carroll 4. Looking at Zorko and Parker this weekend, Zorko back in the midfield will go massive against the Eagles. I mean, if you're bringing in both, that sounds great, but we'd all have Parker ahead of Zorko if you're just picking one. From the Supercoach, Bull, very prominent man on Twitter. So 2 questions. One, who's the bigger priority this week out of Gone and Stewart? Which we haven't actually teed them off against each other,
between each other. I think it's Gone.
Yeah.
Positional advantage, I think.
Yes, I would probably have Gone just because he's locked in at F1.
Yeah.
R1.
Yeah.
Sorry, R1. And there's just so few alternatives as well. And then, secondly, McComb or Clark in this week. Feeling McComb only because neither will be on the field over Nick Martin. Definitely McComb then. Better option this week, Parker at 518 or Heaney at 535. So Parker at 518, I think, is what we all had as the number one there.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. The Crazy Frenchman, Crazy Frogs, who I think won round 1 last year and was leading overall for a couple of weeks, has asked us, what do we do with Hobbs?
Oh, boy.
Wave the white flag and concede.
You can't get rid of him, but you're not feeling
I think you can, because it depends how good Carroll is next week. Because we need slots in the midfield for Clark, McComb, and Carroll. That's the problem.
If he's playing, you give him a chance. And surely there's someone else to trade.
Pissed off with this trade. So pissed off. But he tried, like, you watch the game, JD. He tried hard, and the amount of times they kicked to him, and he was like isolated at half forward with like 2 or 3 people on him. Like, what is going on? Like, what are they doing to him?
But first time watching Essendon, huh?
Honestly, I was like,
draft a midfielder, put them at half forward in the dead role that they cannot play.
It's like it's more dead than half forward. It's like, what was he doing? It was like he was staying so far up the ground too often, but like he worked hard when he was getting the ball, basically. So I like him. I think he can make 70k odd. But if these rookies like Carroll puts in, I don't know, another 90 next week, and you need to make room on the mid bench, I wouldn't hesitate to get rid of Hobbs, who isn't going to do a whole lot. So I think Hobbs can go 45 from here, given the role. But just unfortunate that got scammed here.
I mean, the role is just awful. And I think you're right. His effort looks good. It's just that it's just a dead role in a poor team.
You should flame the club if they drop him because he tried hard. And
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to flame the club at the moment, but yeah. All right. Who scores more this week? It sounds like a bit of a sit-start decision. So O'Driscoll against North or Dacos against Richmond?
I
Just
don't
go
know.
Dacos. Yeah, who knows? But I'd go Dacos.
Yeah,
Yep.
Dacos, I guess.
I think I'd continue back in Dacos with the high average. All right. Is it worth picking a D6 this week for round 14 players? Pick or get my 7th mid this week? It's a bit hard to answer that question. You kind of just continue to go for whoever gets the worst rookies off field that fits your buy structures, that also present some type of value. That's generally how we approach that.
Figure out, what's your D6 going to average and what's your D6 that you're getting in? Like, what's your D6 rookie currently and what's your D6 primo? And then work out the difference between your M8 and your M8 primo and then go from there. So, for example, Clark is significantly going to outscore O'Driscoll most likely by 20, 30 points. Maybe like 20 points. So, look at it from that and then go from there.
All right. Crazy Frogs has done a faux pas and double dipped his chip. So second question is a second tweet here. Use a boost to get McComb, may become McNeil or Scott 2.0. So I think based on what we're saying, yes, you can boost to get McComb just because it looks like we've got other good options next week that we may want to have multiple trades open for.
Yep.
All right. A Kenny Powers impersonator. Is Goldie a sneaky option? So
He's
sneaky.
very sneaky that I can't even. Yeah, no.
He snuck right by us.
I need to go watch Eastbound and Down again. That was so funny.
Yeah.
So Goldie is 414k, and I guess the big thing here is, he's been shifted back into that number one ruck spot with Cherry out for the next month or so. Low break even of 48 and had a big game on the weekend going 125. We talked about Gorn. We talked about Witts. Is there any reason why people should be bringing Goldie? Although the big thing with Goldie is he's a forward option as well, right? He got the DPP.
If you had like a trillion trades, you could get him in and then trade him on the last buy. I'm not against that play.
If Cherry was out longer term, you'd consider it. But he's not. He's only a couple more weeks or 2 or 3 weeks, so they're going to persist with Cherry. I think they'll bring him back in at some point.
Yeah, it's not a long-term solution.
I mean, Cherry was listed at 4 weeks last week, so 3 more weeks. You're not even guaranteed to get good scoring through to that last buy, which makes it pretty tricky. If you had Cherry out until then, I think more interesting option, but unfortunately, probably not. He's so sneaky; he's going to have to keep on sneaking. If you had to choose one premium upgrade, would it be Parker or Sicily? So I think value considered, Parker's still ahead of Sicily this week.
Yep.
Are expensive rucks overrated? There's good value in Proust, Laddams, Witts, Cherry, and Hayes before injuries. Thoughts?
Oof.
Okay, go on. Move on.
Witts
you can make a case for. So go on.
So this has always been the classic thing with the ruck line, right? There is the most money to make there just because rucks tend to score really well and have good floors. So if they've got great job security, you can always make the most money there. But when you look at like value over replacement or whatever you get in that position, the difference between the top 2 rucks and then all your value picks is like 40, 50 points a week. And that can be more than what you see in defense and forwards and even to your midfield to a certain extent. And it's why it's just like, yes, you get more value there, but you are costing a lot of points by doing that. So what we've seen from the last handful of years is that it is absolutely, the expensive rucks have not been overrated. They've been the winning strategy every year. And this is the first year where that's been different. And we've had 9 ruck options pop up, which is crazy. All right, to Rosie or not to Rosie. I know we missed a big price jump, but think his role is good, and Wines talked him up in the post game. Last week's flavor of the week, really.
It was a last week play, I think. I didn't see him this game, but I saw him the 2 games before, and he was really good. Really impressed with him. So I think it's probably too late. I just think you might as well pay an extra 60k for Parker.
Yeah.
400 was all right. Worth a punt, but 450, probably not.
Sorry, I'm going to take us back. Speaking of last week's plays, someone that I was going to bring up in the defenders but completely whiffed on was Vlostone. So up to 503K now. Had another big game last week with a 110, owning the kickouts with Shorty out back, break even 27. I know people are going to be asking about him. Eno, as our resident Tigers man, what are your thoughts on Vlostone? Is he a real option at 500K? Can he go 105 plus?
But before you start, Short had
Yeah.
0 kick-ins. Vloston had 4, and the other 4 were shared between like 4 random
Rioli
players.
and if Shorty plays midfield the rest of the year, then I don't see why not. But there's still the questions with Vloston over his injury history. It's not great. I can't buy that Shorty's midfield rest of the season. Surely, like that was. I
He
just
was
don't know.
good in the midfield.
It was good, but it's West Coast. He was good, but
true.
it's West Coast. He's not a big man in stature by any means. So, can you get away with that against proper midfields? I don't know. Cochin's come back, Dusty to come back. Surely goes back to halfback. Maybe has stints in there, but not. Wasn't he our leading CBA mid or something stupid? It's off. That's not a real thing.
It could be. We'll see how he goes. I think using him up the ground more.
Yes,
50-meter passes hitting inside. 50.
No, I know.
Beautiful
I know. He's insane. I love his leg. Actually, RCD was the most. Then Shorty second. Coming back to Vloston, he's actually very good role if that is the truth. If he gets all the kickouts, plus with how he intercepts and gets a ball behind, gets it behind the ball. I don't know. I just don't like his injury history. That's my concern with him.
Yeah,
I feel like he's been out of the team every month the last couple of years just for something.
Yeah, I think the other big concern as well is that once again, shares that first buy with Short, Hewitt, Whitfield, Ridley, Sinclair, Doherty, and so yes, he's a value option, but you'd be careful. You'd want to be careful about getting too many of those into your side. Okay, cool. So thinking of bringing in Pendlebury, thoughts? I think we covered this off a little bit. It's not the worst option, but probably not at the top of our lists.
Yeah. Won't talk you out of it, but I don't like it.
Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Doherty or Stewart this week if you had to get in one?
Whoever's better for your buy rounds. Probably Stewart.
Given defense, it would be Stewart, I would imagine.
Yep.
And then finally, so this is just someone's trade. So out Berry, Cherry, and Drizzy, in Clark, Parker, and Dale. Is this a good move?
I like Dale. Yeah.
He's also got that middle buy that you're looking for, right? So down back.
Cherry, Berry, Drizzy. Yeah, that's a double upgrade. That's nice. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Hard to fault a double upgrade, especially in Parker being such a good value option and Dale having that mysterious middle buy down back. So, yeah, I think that's everything from us for this week. Thanks for the questions on Twitter. Always good to see what the community is thinking of and weighing up. Closing thoughts before we wrap up another week of Fantasy Take TV. Eno, what are you going to leave us with?
Go the Shrek. Bring me some joy back into this game. No, I won't say that. I'm still enjoy Supercoach, but we need to start making some climb up the ranks. Will we do that Friday video, boys? You reckon? If you're around?
Yeah.
So I know this has been an hour and a half, so for people that don't watch an hour and a half content, we can do something that's 15 minutes or something on Friday.
Just our final trades for the week. So
yeah. George, final thoughts from you?
Well, I think Eno's focusing on FPL. You're focusing on fantasy. I'm focusing on sports deck. Supercoach is our second priority at the moment, but we still love it.
Okay. And from me, a quote to finish off. So I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And George, and I'm feeling really good after an hour and a half with you two. So looking forward to the week ahead. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.